Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to Elemental Connections, where we're giving voice to the unseen realms of nature. I'm Layla May, and today we have a beautiful Lizzie Rae Rose with us. Hello and welcome, Lizzie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's just such an honour to have you here and present in this space. I'm just completely in awe when I found you. I actually found you on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then went and had a look at your website, and it's just everything that I wanted to kind of convey at this time about the fairy consciousness, about flower essences, about the wisdom that comes through in nature, from nature, and from the beautiful. Actually, the Fairy Queen energy was something, when I read on your website that you spoke about the Fairy Queen energy, I was like, I have to speak to this woman.
Yay!
So maybe would you be happy just to dive straight into talking about the Fairy Queen energy, and maybe what that is for you, and how you opened to this beautiful energy?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's a lot there. I'm just gonna see where they want to start. So I work with a council called the Chalice Rose Faery Queens. They're a council that is comprised of fairy queens from Avalon, Mount Shasta, Lemuria, and Lourdes in France. And they, I see the fairy queens as kind of these Maha archangels of the natural world. They are architects of form, they are caretakers, they are magic makers, they are magic birthers, they are deeply interested in helping humans live in the chalice of their bodies. They are deeply invested in co-creating heaven on earth with people. They're deeply interested in helping light workers who are on the forefront of the divine feminine movement. They are deeply interested in having a lot of fun. They're deeply interested in rounding out areas of New Age spirituality that have been lost to a certain extent, like living in the body, talking to plants, being human, like being on this earth.
Yeah.
Right. And so the fairy queens that I'm working with are fairy queens of Gaia. They're fairy queens of this planet. And if there's ever instances so I work with Diana and Artemis. I see them as two separate beings. I see Diana as an ascended master who works with kind of more interstellar diplomacy of different ecosystems within star systems. And then I see Artemis as her twin sister, and Artemis is responsible for the ecosystems on the earth plane. And what is interesting about them is they see these roles as equally important. You know, oftentimes people will talk about like Sirius and the Pleiades as if like these places are more important than planet Earth. And the fairies are here to tell us, like, this is your home right now. Like, this is where you are right now. This is where your bodies come from. Like, you came here to be on Earth for a reason. And you might as well figure out all the magic of being human while you're here, as opposed to escaping your body and going someplace else. The fairy queens are deeply responsible for all of the beings' energies that create form on the planet. They tend to rule over watersheds. So, and then it's actually quite hierarchical, although not tyrannical. So like, again, there's this sense of equality amongst roles. Like everybody has their role to play. Nobody's more important than anybody else. So when you're working with a fairy queen, she will look you in the eyes and see you as a queen. She will look you in the eyes and see you as just as important as she is. And so that's really important too, is understanding like when somebody looks you in the eye as if you're a queen, you have to like up level your game, like, because the expectations that they have for us as creators, as women, as change makers are really, really high. Like, they see all the divine potential and the divine magic within us, and they expect nothing less from us in our expression. So so they're excellent coaches and mentors in that way. Their strengths are around magic, which is really another name for divine feminine power. Their strengths are also, at least this council, their strengths are again like helping you live within your body and really love your body. Their strengths are in relationships, forming relationships between other humans, other realms, like interspecies communication. Their strengths are with again, like herbalism. A lot of women who have fairy energy or elven energy work with herbs and plants in really extraordinary ways, as if they're friends. And so how did I start working with them? Well, when I was a kid, I talked to angels. My mom was doing a meditation one day, and it was a channeled meditation, and I said, "Oh, can I join you, Mom?" I was about like maybe 11, 12. And she said, sure. And so I sat down, I did the meditation, and I said, "Oh, Mama, I can do that. Like, I can talk to these angels." And she's like, "Okay, sounds good." And my like diaries from growing up are all conversations with Jesus and angels and light beings. And so that was my introduction to kind of more like New Age spirituality. At the same time, when I was a kid, plants would talk to me. Like, it's just like many people who have a love for the fairies, they have experiences as a child where they'd see fairies or work with fairies or unicorns or have imaginary friends, that type of thing. For me, it manifested in the oak tree in our front yard. There's this enormous, beautiful, ancient oak tree. And it would just sway in the wind, and it would sing to me. He would sing to me. He would have beautiful messages to say. And at the time, I thought I was totally nuts. Here I was speaking with like angels and Jesus on a daily basis. And I'd speak to this oak tree and I'd be like, is it weird that I'm speaking with plants?
So what's kind of going on right now, isn't it? I think this is the shift, because like you were saying earlier, so many people are happy to talk to angels and ascensive masters and even ET energies. And there's this whole realm of light beings and amazing consciousness and plants and that are right here, right now, like speaking to us.
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely speaking to us. And I mean, like, humans have a lot of feelings about fairies. Like, if you look at the way that religious institutions have stamped out fairy culture, it's no wonder why like people actually have a lot of trauma around working with fairy energy, which is something that I work with my clients. It's not like people don't come to me because they're like, "Oh, I have a lot of trauma when it comes to working with fairy energy." People come to me because they're like, "I have terrible periods," or like, "I want to manifest a relationship," or like, "Can you help me figure out how to channel?" That's why people come to me. And we end up going through some of these traumatic experiences that people had being a fairy, interacting with humans in some way. It's like there's like people don't tend to have that as much when they work with archangels or ascended masters or dolphins or even mermaids.
This is such an interesting point. And I know for myself, I've had to go through a lot, and this actually comes back to my original question that I wrote to you, actually, was because I went through a lot to be able to speak openly about this, and I still get shy at times.
Yeah, because you're fairy.
So would you be open to sharing a little bit about your journey with coming to a place of being comfortable to speak about this?
Yeah, I didn't have a choice, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was pregnant at the time And I had been working with flower essences. I had been communicating with plants, and I had been working with my mentor, Kaya Ra, who wrote the Sophia Code. And she's like, Lizzie, you have to work with Faery Queens. Like, they're your people. And I'm like, no, don't really want to. And like, most of my mentorship with her was actually working through a lot of human trauma that I have around being myself, like from this lifetime. I mean, when I was in high school, I was the like lead suspect in an FBI investigation, which was just like totally crazy. Like, I was completely innocent, but like I had the FBI read to me portions of my high school blog in an interview.
Wow.
You know, or like in this like interrogation room, right? And so it's just like, and then there was another point when I had a dentist like pull out my wisdom tooth and half my tongue went numb.
Wow.
And just like multiple like traumas from this lifetime, like this human form, that were related to my throat, related to speaking my truth, related to being who I was. And I was desperately trying to keep myself in a box. I went to Yale. I worked at Google for 4 years. Within Google, I was working in engineering, and my body ended up shutting down. Like, I couldn't actually physically walk, and I had to be on disability for 3 months. And then from there, I was introduced to Matthew Wood through my naturopath. Matthew Wood is like a total fairy being, like a green man incarnate. He's written so many awesome books that I have here, like this like book of herbal wisdom. Oh, no. And he during our session, what he does is he'll place herbal tinctures on your wrist and then see how your pulse changes. And if it changes in a way that he deems beneficial, he'll give you that herb. And so at the time he wanted to test lady's mantle, which for me is like oak and lady's mantle and hawthorn are like, whew, and violets. Like, they're just like the plants that I have this like deep soul resonance with. But at the time I had never heard of lady's mantle. And he's like, well, like, I don't have the tincture with me. So what he did was he wrote lady's mantle on a piece of paper. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, you can handle this. So, and then he put the piece of paper on my palm. And then immediately I felt my pulse change. The color completely changed in my hand. And that's when I knew that flower angels existed. And during my early days of channeling them, it actually were the flower essences. They asked me to call them flower angels. And they were the ones who basically showed me that it was safe to work with the Faery Queens. The Faery Queens were the ones that were their mentors, like the ones that they looked to, the ones that they loved, the ones that took care of them. And so it was really the plant spirits that brought me the flower angels, that brought me to the Faery Queens. And then when I started really working with the queen energy, the Faery Queen energy, I have this like deep soul connection to Mother Mary. And I had this experience at Lourdes in France a year before that, where I had been tuning into the energy of the land there. And I went and I put my hand on a tree that had been like outside of I always call it the castle. There's that cathedral there. That's a fairy castle, really. And I put my hand on the tree there, and the tree whispered to me, I think maybe it was a cedar tree. And he said, the secrets of Lourdes lie in the forest. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then I wanted to make a flower essence there, and there was some I had made, and I was guided to go across the river from the grotto. I had all my essence making kit there, and I'm looking, and there's like just concrete everywhere. There's no plants. And I go and like I feel myself guided to sit in this one place, and I look across the river and I see this enormous Faery Queen woman who I see as the Lady of Lourdes, which is simply an aspect of Mother Mary incarnated in the fairy realm. And she said, I am the essence you're seeking. And so she showed me how to just like take my hands over water, and she just downloaded a Faery Queen initiation into this bowl of water. And you can feel it coming through right now for all the people who are listening. And then she told me, this is only for you. You can't give this to any clients. Like, this is your doorway in. So then they became my gateway to the fairy realm, like working with these energies of Lourdes, which, like, it's such a Catholic place. It's just kind of interesting. But I felt this deep soul connection to Saint Bernadette, who is the oracle for Lourdes. She's the one who saw Mother Mary. I mean, she's this like 14-year-old girl, right? We hear these stories about young girls having this connection to the fairy realm. And I felt this deeply, like, really strong connection to her, because she too had been essentially interrogated by patriarchy when she was a young child, just simply for being who she was. And, you know, there was great risk for her in that, like, if she didn't keep her story straight, like, she could have been sent to an insane asylum, she could have been stoned to death, she could have been, like, totally killed. And what ended up happening instead was they built this enormous cathedral, church in her honor. The millions of pilgrims come to Lourdes every year to heal in these beautiful fairy waters. And she's a saint. Like, she's a saint. So it's this journey. Like, Lourdes to me is actually a really beautiful journey of what it means to be yourself, honestly. So you know, we're now at a point in human history where it's much safer to speak about this. So it was Lourdes water, really, that brought me into that connection to the fairies, which then brought me to the world of Avalon, which is like like the next level, right? Like, I wouldn't have been able to access that though without that gentleness of Lourdes. And then like Mount Shasta, Lemuria, I'm still figuring out right now. I mean, like, obviously Avalon too, it's got this layers and layers and layers and layers. You go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But I feel like I have a working understanding of Avalon, whereas with the architecture of the Faery Queens and the way they're working together with Mount Shasta and Lemuria and like some of these more like ancient elemental cloud and tree and earth queens, it's much deeper. And in order to work with them, I have to get more and more comfortable with my own identity as a fairy woman. I have to release all of the like junk around me that prevents me from actually believing in fairy magic, because you can't see it unless you believe in it.
Yeah. And so does that mean then when you say that you still have those moments of not believing or doubting what comes through?
All the time.
Oh, okay. That makes you go, oh, phew.
Yeah, no, every day I'm like, this is bogus. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then I'll get emails from my clients like, I just got $1,200. Thanks for helping me create this money. Or I just found my partner. Or I just quit my corporate job. And it's like, okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is so funny. My husband's an engineer, and he, is very skeptical, but beautiful at the same time. And I have these parking fairies. They've explained to me that they're interested in reducing the number of cars on the street because it relates to carbon emissions, and traffic plays a role in carbon emissions, right? And so there are these fairies that are interested in helping people find parking spots and getting out of traffic quickly.
So they don't have to keep driving around.
Yes, exactly, instead of burning fossil fuels. And so
I have these too.
Of course you do,
Yeah.
right? And so there's Buster and Laylee, and my husband like will be trying to look for a parking spot, and he was like, "Have you asked Buster and Laylee for help?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, I forgot." And he's like, "Why didn't you ask them sooner?" And then like, boom, there's a parking spot.
That's so fun. That's so funny because where I live in town, and we have the last sort of area in town where it's free parking. Everywhere else you have to pay for, so it gets really chock-a-block here. But I can always find a parking space on my road or the next road, like always. Well, 98% of the time.
Of
And
course
you
you can.
ask. You need to ask, right? I think.
Yeah, totally. So it's so yeah, there's absolutely moments when I doubt, and then there are moments when there's just no other way. It's like the people talk about the choice of no choice, but for me, sometimes it's the belief of no choice. Like it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And the more that I like, what's interesting is, and you might feel this too, like I feel like being kind of at the forefront of a movement where human beings can interact with the elemental realm on a really real way. It's like we're moving through all of humanity's feelings about fairies in the same way that like women and men did 20-30 years ago when it came to communicating with ascended masters and archangels. And so it's just like I feel like sometimes the work that I'm doing with myself is so much bigger. It's like so much more collective work, which is why it can feel like really heavy sometimes. And so I just don't give up. And then like also like quite frankly in a saturated market where you've got lots of people doing energy healing, lots of people doing healing work, it's like I really think that the more that you can just be yourself, the more people will just flock to you. Because if you're trying to copy somebody else in some way, like people don't want to work with them. I mean, maybe some people want to work with people who are copies of what's been done, but I think most people want to work with like original stuff. And frankly, most people don't really come to me because of the fairies. They come to me because they're like, that woman is communicating with something that's real. Like she has relationships with something that feels really real. And I want relationships that deep with myself and my guides too. So it's not even the fairies that tends to draw people in as much as just like having that deep communion with who you are.
And the fairy and when you're working with fairy consciousness, it's you begin to realize it's interwoven with everything, isn't it? And that's what we're here to share, that it's not, there's no separation. Like we all have this, we're all made of matter, and like our bodies are maintained by fairies or elemental beings or whatever you want to call it. Like
absolutely,
once you keep it's another layer, isn't it? Like you said, I feel like this is a cutting edge thing, you know. We're right on the forefront of sharing this information in a new way that wants to come through. Especially connected with the divine feminine. The more that we connect in with the earth and this flow of the divine feminine, the flow of nature, then we have to include all of this.
Totally. Like if you're speaking about the divine feminine and you're not talking about nature, you're missing a lot of it, actually. You're missing a lot of it. And granted, there are absolutely masculine qualities of nature consciousness too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like, you know, just summer, you know, absolutely. And so like, if you're not talking about nature consciousness, when you're talking about the divine masculine, you're also missing out on a big piece of it. So yeah, absolutely. And so I think that as the divine feminine movement matures and moves forward, more and more women are going to be wanting to seek relationships with the earth in really meaningful ways that aren't appropriating indigenous cultures, that are true to who we are. I mean, like that's been part of my like journey too, is like, okay, I have a lot of Celtic ancestry. Like, what were their indigenous practices? Like, what were they working with, so that I'm not stealing Native American spirituality?
Yeah, we're looking at, within my circles at the moment, we're beginning to really talk about this. What were our native practices, and really beginning to listen to the land here again, because in England, we're such a multicultural society that we're full of a lot of us are using Native American wisdom, and it's like we've forgotten this land's wisdom. So it is an exciting time to start really listening to the land again. And it's so much, I wouldn't say it's so much louder right now. Like, I feel like it's like, as we are willing to go, they can come and meet us too.
Yeah, they want to work with us. I mean, like, some plants honestly are just like one time I started talking to the Dandelions here in the city, and they just started talking about the genocide. And I'm like, what genocide? Like, people are killing us all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Let's like work with this. Whereas like the Dandelions in Switzerland, they don't talk to me about that. They're just like, let's go, relax. So like when the plants are suffering, it's like they want to be heard. But yeah, like, and like here in California, it can be challenging sometimes, because a lot of the native plants are widely respected by Native American cultures, like white sage, for example. And so like I really have to ask a lot of questions about like what I'm using, what's feeling good, who I'm communicating with, etc. And like always with respect. So yeah, that's the Faery Queen journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And just going back to that, like, if you were to, is there any advice that you could give somebody listening who wants to communicate more with plants, or with the Faery Queens, or any of these aspects of nature? Are there any kind of like top tips that you might have? Or
actually, I would say that the most important thing, actually, when you're communicating with plants, there's two things, and they're basically the same. And communicating with Faery Queens is try to create a space where you're within source energy when you're working with Faery Queens. There's lots of like layers of fairy energy, some of it more beneficial than others. And so if you can surround yourself in the white light of source energy, and then have a conversation with like the most angelic higher self nature of that Faery Queen, you're gonna have a different interaction than if you just like step out of that and just like say, hey, what's up? So that is like the simplest way that I can talk about interacting with like that Faery Queen energy, because there are Faery Queens that like are like chaotic, and might like not manipulate you, but like not want to work with you. Like like the fairy realm is vast. It's just like the human realm, right? And so like there are like I'm most interested in working with the Faery Queens who are interested in divine feminine magic.
And so what is there something that you might say in order to connect with that more love light energy? Like, is there a prayer that like, or something that you could share with people, just so that they know that they're working with the most harmonious energies that they can work with?
Yeah, actually, I would just communicate heart to heart. So like you can even like place your hand on your heart, and what I'll do is I'll send this like lightning bolt energy to the heart of the Faery Queen, and then you're communicating heart to heart.
Beautiful.
And so even if it's like one of the the wilder Faery Queens, if you're still communicating with that person heart to heart, it's going to be different. Like, so you're like communicating with the highest aspects of that Faery Queen, and they're communicating with yours too.
Yeah, nice. Because that's what like when we do that with each other, when we come from a heart space, then we have a different experience.
Yeah. And that's the doorway to the fairy realm. Like the heart is the doorway to the fairy realm. That's why children are so connected to the fairy realm, is because they're more centered in their heart space.
Yeah.
And so if you're interested in connecting with the love of the fairy realm, move to your heart and move through there.
Yeah.
And the same is true with the plant spirits. So the dandelion example I gave you, where they're like, the genocide. Like, I was not working with the highest aspects of dandelion there, and they certainly taught me a lesson. But I've talked about the flower angels a little bit. So I see that. Okay, so how do they want me to explain this? Start from the top down. Okay, so from the top down, there's like the flower. From the top down, actually, there's Archangel Ariel. So Archangel Ariel is the Archangel of nature, and she's also the Archangel of the flower angels, as she's explained this to me. And so all of the flower angels kind of report up to her, and then like work on more of a well, they report up to a council, actually, but she's kind of the main spokesperson of that council. There's fairy queens involved. There's some ascended masters involved too, and dragons involved as well. And so they are the flower angels, like the angel of rose. Like, actually, the flower angel of rose is she might even just be a fairy queen, honestly. Like, she has this energy that's like so regal. It's really hard to say like where she is in it, but like let's say she's the flower angel of rose. She is responsible for all of the roses and all of the individual like devas of the individual plant roses. And then like there are also flower angels for each of the varieties of roses. So there's kind of like, it just like arcs down and then there's like this hierarchy that goes down. So like when you're making a flower essence, for example, and you're communicating with an oak tree, or you're communicating with hawthorn tree, for example, the gateway drug to the fairy realm. I communicate with the hawthorn angel. I don't necessarily talk as much to the hawthorn spirit of that specific tree. Mm-hmm. That's where I want to get my messages from. That's where I want to get the healing energy from, because then you don't have to worry about, does this flower have enough water? Does this flower have like the right like nutrient balance in the soil in order to make the highest frequency essence possible? On the flip side, if you're gardening and you want to be like co-creating with like the individual plant spirits in your garden and figuring out like what you need, then you communicate with that plant spirit, that individual plant personality self. Like that's how I work with all of my house plants. Like if something's really wrong, like I'll bring in like the plant spirit of the flower angel of philodendron and like do some healing work with it. But otherwise I'm like, what flower essence do you want today? And just like can see it eye to eye. And work with it that way.
Beautiful. Oh, that's a wonderful way of explaining it. Thank you. I feel like I'm aware of those levels, but I've never quite seen it like that. So it's a really beautiful way of explaining the hierarchy and explaining that it's all equal and all important and all has its place.
Yeah, I mean, like that egalitarianism is really kind of surprising when you're working with the energy of a queen. And then also like it's the only, like, organizing this realm is the only way I've been able to figure out how to work with it, because otherwise it's just like all of creation, like physical creation, and it can be really, really overwhelming. So if somebody is really interested in working with the fairy realm, like figure out ways to organize it, you know, to create structure so that you can have the room for all of the chaotic beauty of the natural world.
There's a lot that goes on, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And this, like, you've got, and we're just talking about plants and fairy queens. We're not talking about elves and gnomes and trolls and unicorns and dragons and the stone beings and like the standing men and like all of the various different races of fairies within fairies. So like it's a vast world, and the more that you can you know, for me, the challenge in working on my book is like, how much do I world build? Like, how much do I actually like sit down and organize this realm in a way that makes sense? But like, my goal is to do it so that other people don't have to. But it's taking a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful resource to have if you're up for doing it. That's amazing. Yeah.
We'll see. Well, I mean, like my mission here on Earth is to create doorways for humans to communicate with the fairy realm.
Yeah.
Right. Which is really communicating with who we are. I mean, I was just reading the other day this piece about how like humanity could not have evolved without flowers. It's like our existence of a species is dependent upon flowering plants to produce food.
Wow.
And so like we wouldn't be here without the fairies. Mm-hmm. So how do we, like, literally, like,
exactly, we really wouldn't. We really wouldn't.
Yeah. So as much as we can organize it and understand it, the better.
Yeah.
And that's not even to mention like environmentalism, you know, and eco stewardship and caring for the body of the earth itself.
Yeah. Somebody said something really beautiful recently about helping people to fall in love with earth as a way of really, like, once you fall in love with something, then you can't harm it. So I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful way in. And again, it's about like going back through the heart.
Yeah. And like, you know, the more that you say that, like, actually, for me, healing, like working with the fairy realm has been really healing for my relationship with my physical body. Like, I feel like a lot of light workers have, a lot of humans, a lot of women have body issues, like really extreme body issues. And I mean, I haven't really had extreme body issues, but like a side effect of working with the fairy realm has been like, wow, I actually have so much respect for what is going on in here right now, that I love myself, that I'm conscious of the food that I'm eating, the water that I'm drinking, and the exercise that I'm doing, and the way that I'm speaking to myself. Because when you speak to your body, you're actually speaking to the fairy realm. So, and if a woman is listening to this, or a person who's listening to this who has an uncomfortable relationship with the body, working with the fairies can be a really powerful doorway to healing up that space. A lot of humans have a deep fear of nature that manifests in self-hatred, like self-hating the body because the body is nature. And so the more that we heal that core wound, that separation between who we are and our relationship with our bodies and our bodies itself, like the more that we can heal that divide and say there's nothing to fear about nature. I mean, like, yeah, there's tornadoes and like scary things, but like the nature of your body is like, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Oh, that's just wonderful wisdom. It's such important wisdom right now. Yeah, thank you for bringing that through.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I'm just discovering this myself too. So
yeah, the last book I read, it was speaking about the body elemental. But I mean, I've seen individual fairy beings that like look after the different elements and the different, like, there's something for everything, right?
There's something for everything, yeah. But I see that your major body elemental as your fairy godmother.
Oh, nice. Do you want to give a quick voice to that? Oh my god, I can like listen and talk to you for just so long.
So that I see this as basically they showed me in meditation that the elemental of your body is your fairy godmother, and you think of your fairy godmother as somebody who actually takes care of the physical world for you in ways that you can't care for it yourself. So like if you think of the fairy godmother in Cinderella, like she's like, oh, you need a carriage, you need a car, like let me create that for you. You need a dress, let me create that for you. You need glass slippers, let me create that for you. And so she's like this ambassador between your higher self and the world of form, and helping you with your physical body. And so there's actually an entire order of fairy godmothers that are tending to the bodies of humans. And and animals and plants. Like everything has a fairy godmother, which is really cool. So again, like if there's something happening in your world physically where you need help, calling upon that deva of your body, the fairy godmother, can be really helpful. And also asking for the name of your fairy godmother, it can be really, really helpful too.
That's so beautiful. So do you see the fairy godmother energy as the same as what some people might call a deva?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that the more that we name things fairies as opposed to devas, the more we give the fairy realm power.
Nice. I like that. I felt like I wanted to high five you on that one then.
Yeah. It's
just
like
speak it into awareness and into consciousness and into reality.
Yeah, I think that the overuse of deva is a symptom of people's and it's just like a symptom of people's discomfort with the fairy realm. Just call it fairies, like call them fairies. But like part of calling it fairies is that people don't take fairies seriously.
Yeah.
But calling something a deva as opposed to a fairy takes away the power of the fairy.
Yeah. And that was something before we started recording, something that you just said when we spoke briefly was about how powerful these beings are.
Oh my God.
That fairy, even the word has still got this airy fairy sort of, and yet they are such powerful beings.
So it comes down to all of the ridiculous ways that we have evaded our own power as humans and the power of the divine feminine. The way that fairies have been portrayed as these tiny little pixies is the way that we sorry, there's like somebody at the door, is a way that we see ourselves as tiny little pixies. And then it's like you think about fairy magic is like creating entire landscapes, like glaciers moving and thunder and lightning and clouds, and like that's fairy magic. Like cyclones, that's fairy magic, and that can be terrifying when you actually get in it. Like I was out with the fairies on near the Matterhorn hiking, and they're like, we're going to show you something awesome so you can get comfortable with how awesome you are. And showed me this like crazy thunder and lightning storm, and I was perfectly safe. I was terrified, but at the same time I was like, they're just having fun right now. But it's like, whoa, that's some of that like divine feminine Kali energy that can be really threatening for people. And so like the more comfortable that we get with our own power and our own magic, the more we're able to see fairies for the powerful beings that they are. And the more they're able to see us for who we are and co-create. Because like honestly, in order to move this movement forward, this divine feminine movement forward, we need to get really comfortable with what divine feminine power looks like. And part of that is getting really comfortable with the way that fairy queens create.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Wow, that's really beautiful, really potent, really empowering. I love it. I love everything that you're bringing through from this realm and through your clarity. It's just, I feel really excited. I feel really excited. I feel like I've just gone to the next level with this. Like I feel like a lot of what you've just said, it just speaks so deeply to me, and it makes so much sense. And I was having like lots of realizations as you were speaking as well. So
oh yeah, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Through my own relationship with my own power that I've had to discover this, like all of the ways that I was hiding from myself. Yeah. Like, wow. And it just got to the point where it was just like, there's no choice. Yeah. You just have to do it. You just have to do the work. Yeah. And thank God for the flowers, like Violet and Eyebright have been really helpful in as flower essences for showing me my own power, for helping me see myself for who I am, not needing to be anybody else. Like you think about a violet, it's like people, they like step down to the violet to look at the violet, and they put their nose in the violet. It's not that they expect the violet to all of a sudden grow 10 feet so that they can like see it, right? It's like, I can't expect myself to grow 10 feet for people to see me. I just have to be comfortable being who I am, and to like let out that delicious fragrance of my heart so that people are attracted to it. Like, that's the violet medicine. And Eyebright, like, wow, like she really helps us see the places where we're blind to our own power. Like, those are two flower essences that I really, really love for working with this energy of power. Maeve is a really powerful fairy queen for this. Morgan Le Fay is really great for this as well. Guinevere, like, Bridget's coming through as well. And then as far as the Ascended Masters go, Isis, I feel like, is she's an extraordinary ally for the fairy realm and the realm of magic and alchemy, and like getting really clear and sober about your power. So man, I wouldn't be able to do this work without her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel that too. I feel deeply connected to her and that lineage. Yeah,
totally. Well, it's the lineage of Avalon. Like, the lineage of Avalon goes like through the lineage of Isis. It's the violet. I see it connected through the violet flame, that like violet purple energy.
Yeah, I listened to your meditation today on that. So if anybody's listening to this and they want to go deeper, then I really encourage people to go and visit your website. And you've got lots of free content as well, lots of free beautiful meditations and all of your flower essences, and you go and check them out and buy them and use them and connect with the fairies that way. It's a beautiful way to connect with them.
Yeah, the violet essence I was just talking about is in my Morgan Le Fay formula. Nice. So she gave me this combination of violet and silver essences, violet flower and silver gem essence, and she's like, I'm a shy fairy woman, like, and this is how I helped myself be seen. This is how I help myself see myself, because people can really only see you as far as you're willing to see yourself. Yeah, people can see different things, they can observe different things, but at the end of the day, that's the core of the truth. And she really helps with that. So if you're in the US or Canada, which is where I'm shipping right now, the Morgan Elixir is really great, really helpful.
Nice.
And it tastes like roses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I make my base with organic grape alcohol and rose water.
Wow, that sounds good. Oh my God, I can't believe you don't ship here.
I know. Well, like, email me. It's the
shipping cost is just not worth it, is it?
No, it's not the shipping cost even.
Okay.
I would just charge more. It's making sure that I'm following all the regulations of manufacturing herbal products.
Okay, yeah, it's getting strict. It's getting really strict.
Yeah, and like, I just want to make sure that I'm doing things in complete integrity. And so, like, I understand what the regulations are in the US, and then eventually I'll be looking at Australia and the UK. For my flower essence program, however, because it's like more, it's called the Chalice Rose Society. Like, for that program, I am shipping throughout the world, because I'm not. It's a program that just so happens to also include essences. It's not like I'm selling you a set of essences and that's it. So that I feel comfortable sharing with people.
Okay, great. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, and if you want a consultation, I offer flower angel attunements, and like, as an herbalist offering herbs, I'm able to do that throughout the world as well. So I ship anywhere there's mailboxes.
Yeah, nice. That's
beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Like,
You're so welcome.
This is incredibly rich, I feel. And is there anything else before we finish?
No, just bless you for the work you're doing in the world, for bringing these conversations forward. Like, man, we just can't do this without, there's just a beautiful feather that lifted around you. It's just like, we have to be working with each other.
Yeah.
You know, doing fairy work in isolation is a really quick path to madness.
Yes.
So, like, like, let's be honest. So just thank you for bringing women together, people together, fairy beings together, elemental beings together, and having these conversations with people, because they're super important conversations to have.
Yeah, and it's my absolute pleasure. It's so wonderful to be doing what my pleasure is, you know, to be, on my path. This is my path, and I've known it for so long, you know, that voice that's been telling me for years, you know, that I have to get out and speak about the fairies and the fairy queens. And I'm just like, here it is.
Let's do it. Yeah, we're doing it. So thank you.
It's happening. Yeah. Thank you so much for being willing to share so much information.
You're so welcome. And then a blessing for everybody. You're just feeling a blessing come through from all the fairy queens over everybody who is on this call. A blessing for you for moving through to that next level of being able to interact with the fairy queens in a really real, powerful, rich, fun, and beautiful way. There we are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for being with us, and thank you to everybody that has shown up here today in this moment and is receiving this information and ready to start working with the fairy queens and with the fairy realm. So many blessings and so much love to you. Thank you so much.